Hey folks, and welcome back to West Yorkshire Retro Gamer. 5 months ago I did a video that talked about what do I think Leeds United need to stay in the Premier League. This was when we'd confirmed that we were being promoted to the Premier League, and this was very early on after we'd confirmed it. So I kind of had a look at things. I had a look at who was in the current squad at the time. I had a look at the players that were out on loan. I had a look at some players that Leeds could potentially look into buying or loaning. And then a few key points that needed to be outlined. So, looking back at this, it's quite funny because the way things are at Leeds right now is very different to what you kind of see on the screen here. And I'll just explain what I mean by that. And I'll do that by starting firstly to have a look at the squad. So the squad that finished the season at Leeds United. Melier, he's currently being relegated to third choice. Caldalo has been promoted. Well, no, Caldalo stays at second choice. And Alex Cairns is now fourth choice as things stand. Bogle, still first choice right back. Junior Firpo has moved on to Betis on a free after his contract expired. Sam Byram signed a new contract, but is currently last choice fullback as things stand. Isaac Schmidt has gone on loan to Werder Bremen. Ampadu still at the club, still club captain. Joe Roden and Pascal Strauch have continued to be the first choice centre back pairing. And bar the Arsenal match, have done very well up to now. Max Werber has also gone on loan to Werder Bremen, joining Isaac Schmidt. Autinaka played the first game against Everton but has been injured, and then since he's come back has been a substitute ever since. Joe Rothwell, he ended up getting what I think was a permanent move to Glasgow Rangers in the end. Ilya Gruev, probably seen as fifth choice central midfielder now, I would say. Joshua Gilavogi, his short-term deal came to an end, and I don't think he's got another club yet. Dan James has... did he start the game against Everton? I think he might have done, but he's been injured ever since and he hasn't come back yet. He's expected to be back after the next international break. Manor Solomon decided that he wanted to stay at Spurs after his loan spell at Leeds, but has then gotten himself injured. Willie Nonto, similar to Dan James, played early on but has since gotten himself injured and again won't be back until after the international break. Laji Ramazani has gone on loan to Valencia after he was deemed to be the bottom choice winger, and just simply needed more game time. The club is still stating that they are keenly keeping tabs on Ramazani. They're not unlike Werber and Schmidt, who I think probably will permanently move on. The club still seems to have an invested interest in Ramazani going forward, so they're hoping that he has a good loan with Valencia. Joel Pirro has found himself to be the third choice striker now, after having been predominantly the first choice last season. Brendan Aronson, due to the injuries to Dan James and Willie Nonto, has found himself getting a lot of game time recently on the right wing this season, as opposed to the number 10 last season. Patrick Bamford, he had a mutual termination, or mutually agreed termination of his contract. Him and Daniel Farke had a conversation, and Daniel told him that, Patrick needs to be the lead number 9, but it won't be at Leeds United. So Patrick's moved on. I don't think he's got a club yet, but there are mutterings of a couple of clubs that are, genuinely interested. I think Getafe in Spain is one of the latest rumours of where he might end up. And then Matteo Joseph ended up getting a loan move to Mallorca. He started last season as the primary number 9, but only got 3 goals in 15 appearances, and was then, kind of pushed down the pecking order, with Joel Pirogue taking over the lead number 9 role. So that's the status of all the players that finished the season last season. In terms of the players that have gone out on loan, Darko JB has now left Leeds on a permanent deal. Where did he go? Was it Hull? Not sure. Think it might be Hull. Can't remember now. Charlie Crew has gone on loan, but not on a permanent, or with an option to buy or anything like that. It's just a straight up loan, and he's rejoined Doncaster, having helped Doncaster get promoted from League 2 to League 1. He's now gone back to Doncaster on loan, so he can get some League 1 experience with them. And with it being familiar surroundings to him, having been on loan there last season, it seems like a sensible move. And he's still very young. I think he's still only 19. It's crazy. Feels like he's been around for a few seasons now, Charlie Crew. I think he's still only like 19. Has he turned 20 possibly? He's still very young. Now, who saw this one coming? Jack Harrison. A couple of very poor seasons with Everton, certainly from a GNA point of view. But despite that, and despite his mum coming out with a very stupid comment that he would never play for Leeds again, or words to that effect, Harrison's actually come back into the fold. He has shown that he is working hard. He is showing that he is integrating with his teammates, and when he has come on as a substitute, has looked quite bright. He's not just gone on there and dawdled around. He's trying to play the best that he can, and it, like a couple of players before him, it is a redemption type scenario for him. But up to now, I can't fault him too much. He's pleasantly I can't talk today. My God, pleasantly surprised me so far, and I'm glad of it. I want all of Leeds' players to do well, because if they do well, then Leeds United do well. So long may it continue with Jack Harrison. He's still got that very good ball control. When he's in possession of the ball, he's very good with it. He just needs to improve his crosses and set pieces. If he can do that, he'll be fine. Sam Greenwood left on a permanent deal. He went to a Polish club, I think they're called Pogoń, if I remember right. We sold him for about £3 million, which is a decent deal for a player who, in the end, unfortunately, didn't really make the grade. Similar scenario to his former strike partner, Joe Gallart. He has gone to Hull City, where he has had a loan spell before, and again I think Hull have snapped him up on. It's probably a free transfer, but there might have been some kind of nominal undisclosed fee in there somewhere, but Hull have had a transfer embargo which has made things a little bit weird. So it's not clear as to the detail that's actually come out regarding that transfer. But either way, it's confirmed that both Gallagher and Greenwood, who in Leeds as under 21s or under 23s as it might have been at the time, they were forming quite a good partnership together. But both of those are now permanently gone. As is Sonny Perkins, whose contract ran out. Still quite a young player is Perkins. He's slightly younger than Greenwood and Gallagher, and I think Perkins might have ended up at Leyton Orient on a permanent after having a loan spell there, maybe. I think that's where he was from originally, before we got him from West Ham. I don't know for sure, to be honest. Didn't really look into it. Kean Coleman has also left the club now. Where did Kean Coleman end up? Was it Buxton, possibly? Might have been Buxton, and I think that might have been where he had a loan spell. I've not really looked into where these younger players have gone in the end. It's so difficult for young players these days. If you don't have what it takes early on at the higher level, then you're going to find yourself dropping down several divisions, which is what's happened to quite a few of these young players. And they can still forge very good careers, obviously. Luca Thomas, I think he actually got snapped up by Halifax in the end. I could be wrong, but he went on loan to Halifax, did alright, and he'd had a loan spell at York just before that as well last season, and he did alright there as well. I think Luca Thomas might have ended up at Halifax. Conor Ferguson, his contract ran out. I'm not sure where he's ended up, if anywhere. Darryl Ombang, the goalkeeper, he's actually stayed at Leeds, but he does find himself the backup goalkeeper to Rory Mahadi at this moment in time in the Leeds under 21s. And then Joe Richards, I'm not sure where Joe Richards has ended up, but he's left the club as well. These are all young, the 6 players on those bottom 2 lines there are all young players, and they just weren't really going to make the grade at Leeds United in the end. But again, nothing against them whatsoever. With the exception of Ombang, who, as I say, is still in the under 21 squad right now. But I would imagine that Darryl Ombang is probably, if something doesn't happen with him this season, he probably will be out the door after this season, I would think. Maybe a return to Bradford City, which is where we got him from. I don't know. But Bradford have improved their circumstances in recent times, so getting themselves promoted from League 2 to League 1, so I don't know. Moving on to a list of players that I thought would have been good additions for Leeds United, and affordable additions as well. I've gone through the entire list, and in the end, Leeds ended up with none of them. Now, this isn't because they were just players that I wanted Leeds to sign. A lot of these players were loosely linked with Leeds in terms of transfer rumours. Nick Pope, still at Newcastle, as far as I'm aware. Tariq Lamptey, I think he's still at Brighton, possibly. I could be wrong on that one. Tyrick Mitchell, I'm fairly certain he stayed at Crystal Palace. Nico Elvedi, he's still in Germany. Ben Davies, don't know if he extended his time at Tottenham or not. Julian Weigl, still playing in Germany. Calvin Phillips, I think Phillips is still at Man City. I don't think he even got himself a loan move because I think he's injured. Jacob Murphy, I think he's still at Newcastle. Daizen Maeda, still at Celtic. Sem Stein, he got a move still in Holland. I think he might have gone from possibly AZ Alkmaar to... Oh no, I think it was at FC20. But I think he got himself a move to Feyenoord. Or Ajax or PSV. He got a move from one of the middle Eredivisie teams to one of the top 3 Eredivisie teams in the end. And I think Stein would have been an excellent pickup. I really do. His stats from last season were stupidly good. Tim Kleindienst still playing in the Bundesliga, and James Milner in the end, and I put him down as an honourable mention. I think Milner is still at Brighton. I think he's I think he got given another 1-year deal at Brighton. I would have loved Milner to come back. You know, it's a very nostalgic type of move, isn't it? You know, he started his career at Leeds. Why not come and finish your career at Leeds? You know. And apologies, as Kirby decided to infiltrate the stream, or video in this case, as she does. She may as well host the damn thing. She's probably more interested than me. So yeah, in the end, all of these players who, as I say, they were all loosely linked, or I sounded them out for having very good seasons, or their contracts were running out. You know, so these were all. I feel that all of these were achievable signings if the club had decided to go down the route of these players. But in the end, they opted for none of them. Leeds opted for a very deliberate approach in the transfer market. They opted for big physical players, and they opted for players that were all available for less than £20 million each. So yeah, that's how it ended up really. And so, just to finish, I mentioned a few little bullet points, if you like, and we'll just see how these things have ended up, at least so far anyway. Farke needed new players. There's no doubt that the current squad wouldn't have been good enough on its own. Aside from the fact that we needed to replace Junior Firpo, who was a regular in the team last season, and obviously, he left. Rothwell and Solomon played quite a lot as well, and we've replaced Rothwell with, Sean Longstaff, or Anton Stack, whichever way you look at it. You could say that Stack's replaced Gulavogi if you like, and then we've replaced Solomon with Noah Okafor. So, you could argue we've replaced Bamford and Joseph with DCL and Mecha. Ramazani, I guess that's the only player that maybe we've not replaced. Verba, again, like Verba, we've replaced Verba with, you could say either Biol or Bonao. Probably Biol because Verba is a left-sided centre-back. And then Schmidt, we've replaced him with James Justin. Or Gabby Gudmundsson, whichever way you look at it. Well, no, Gudmundsson's replaced Firpo. So James Justin's replaced Schmidt, really. And then Lucas Perriers has obviously come in as first choice over both Melier and Darlow and Cairns, and Darlow's kind of backing up Perry, doing quite well actually. As I say, Melier has found himself going from first choice to third choice, which I don't think he envisaged at all, really. So Farke needed new players. He's brought in 10 players, 10 new players for the upcoming season. These being Lucas Perry in goal, James Justin right back, centre backs Biol and Bonao, left back Gabby Gudmundsson, midfielders Sean Longstaff and Anton Stack, Noah Okafor on the left wing, and then Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Lucas Mecha up front. And I actually did a video previously as well, which it talked a little bit about those 10 plus Jack Harrison. I included Harrison in that lineup and compared it to a regular 11 from last season. Just to kind of compare the is there a difference in quality? Is there a difference in style of player? That kind of thing. So we talked about a lot of detail in that. Fagany's time. Well, I think he's earning his time. He's made a very good start to the season. 6 games in, 2 wins, 2 draws, 2 losses, and one of those losses could have ended up being a draw, and one of those draws could have ended up being a win had Leeds shown a little bit of better quality in game management. In the end these things didn't happen, but it's still a very solid return, and if we were to keep that form going for the remainder of the season, at least up until 36 games are played, that would leave just 2 games remaining, we would be comfortably safe from relegation, in my opinion. For me, Daniel Farke is earning the time that he needs. By, for the most part, as I say, there's only really one game where he got it completely wrong, and that was the Arsenal game. But again, a lot of teams will get beat by Arsenal this season. And it was very early on as well, that Arsenal game. We can't forget that as well. There wasn't a lot of time for for everything to kind of gel and knit into place and whatnot. It was just a bit unlucky in a way. 2 of the 5 goals were very preventable, in my opinion, with one being a penalty and one being a free kick. You just simply don't give those 2 opportunities away so easily, and all of a sudden, you're still going to lose, but it ain't going to be as bad as 5-0. But again, you look at the opponent and you take it all into context. Leeds need a good pre-season, I said, and a good pre-season they had. They remained unbeaten, getting draws against Manua and Villarreal and AC Milan, which ironically we got Noah Okafor from, and he played in that match, and he was arguably AC Milan's best player on that match as well. And the performances against all 3 of those kind of suggested that we have a chance to show that we're not going to be out of place in the Premier League here. It was very promising. We beat the 2 lower league German teams that we played against as well. I only found out recently that when we played against Paderborn, they actually have Daniel Farke's son playing for him, but he doesn't go by the surname Farke because he wants to build his own legacy and not be compared to his dad and all this kind of thing. So that was interesting to find out. And ironically, Leeds didn't sign him. Imagine if that had happened. I didn't even know Daniel Farke had a son until I found this out. But yeah, very good pre-season for Leeds in the end, and when you take into account that we were unbeaten throughout the entirety, we brought new players in. You could argue we needed maybe 2 more players, but unfortunately we maxed out our PSR, so we did what we could, by and large, from what we can tell. Leeds need luck with avoiding injuries, and you could add suspensions to that as well. So far we've not received any player suspensions. Injuries, I mean, you could look at it, with Dan James and Willie Nonto and Lucas Perry, all 3 of those have been unavailable for a chunk of the season so far, and Tanaka to a certain point as well. So have we had luck with avoiding injuries? I mean, every team's going to argue that they're going to get injuries throughout the season, but it's more detrimental to teams that have only just come up, isn't it? because their squad's not going to have the generic quality as it is. So yeah, it's an arguable one, is that? But for example, if you're a squad where your backup 11 is nearly as good as your first 11, it's not as detrimental to yourself if you get injuries because you've got players coming in that are almost as good. That's never going to be a case for the teams that are just coming up from the Championship. So yeah, I don't know. I would have preferred us to have not had the injuries we've had, albeit it's very early on. Falconese's new players early. So this was back when we were talking about how we wanted the transfer window to kind of go, and to Leeds' credit, they did bring in a lot of their players quite early. I think out of the 10 new players, I think we had at least 6. Was it 6 in? Maybe 6 of them after the first, after the first kind of segment of the window, because it kind of closed temporarily and then reopened, didn't it? But we'd done a lot of business early. So for as far as that point's concerned, I think Leeds did get that just about. And then obviously the long-term point that's on the board there. Leeds need 40 points to stay up. I am of the firm belief that Leeds need 10 wins and 10 draws this season to get themselves 40 points, and 40 points should be enough for 17th place. Anything more than that could get them propelled up maybe another couple of places, who knows. But when you look at how last season was, the bottom 3 were terrible, and if the bottom 3 hadn't been so terrible, there was every possibility that Tottenham Hotspur, Wolverhampton Wanderers and Manchester United could have all been relegated, because they were your bottom 3 after the actual bottom 3. Imagine if that had have happened. 2 of the former big boys, as it would have been, that's the phrase that would have been coined, isn't it? 2 of your former rich 6, 2 of your former big 6, whatever you want to call it. In the end it didn't happen, and as things stand, Manure currently find themselves in the mire, which is great. Spuds, they're having a good season so far. They've got, I think, 3 wins, 2 draws and 1 loss after 6 games, so they're doing alright, unfortunately. But again, they changed manager, didn't they? And he's been able to change things around, as Thomas Frank, after leaving Brentford. But anyway, so Leeds need 40 points to stay up. They currently have 8 after 6 games, which is a very decent return. And as I say, they could have been 3 points better off had they drawn against Fulham and beaten Bournemouth, of which they were very unlucky not to. But also, again, you could maybe argue, on one hand you could argue that it was just bad luck, and then on the other side you could argue, could they have shown a bit more, improved game management. I think that this will come as the season goes on. The fact that it's happened twice now, I think Daniel Farke will be saying to his players in training, this is what we need to improve on now. So they'll probably do some maybe 5-a-side, 7-a-side matches, and these might be for maybe 15 minutes or so, or something like that, and then it's a case of see how this plays out. You've got to keep it tight. You can't be conceding goals. In the 90th plus minute, which Leeds unfortunately have done twice so far. So there you have it, folks. That's my review of a video that I did that was entitled "What Do Leeds Need to Stay in the Premier League?" And up to now, I think we're doing all right. I really do. It's not a bad record, is it, after 6 games? And you look at some of the opposition: Arsenal, Newcastle, Everton, Bournemouth, Fulham. They're all and Wolves. They're all established Premier League sides. We haven't played Burnley or Sunderland yet, and we're doing all right. We really are. So long may the good stuff continue. Well, we've reached half an hour, so let's call it a do for now. But a big thank you for watching. As mentioned at the start, do please give the video a thumbs up, like. Do please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. The support really does help, and I am looking to try and get up to 200 subscribers on YouTube as soon as possible. So do please give your support if you can. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day. Catch you next time. Bye for now.